Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I've got a super, super special guest today, and I'm just so blessed and so happy that Natalie actually gave me some of her valuable time. She's a bit of an enigma in the QHHT world. She's an absolute superstar, and she's in the south of England, if you're lucky enough to be down that way. She's one of these unique unicorns that have actually been trained by Dolores Cannon herself. So she very much has felt Dolores's energy personally. And thank you so much for having a chat with me, Nat.
My pleasure, John. Thanks for having me on the show. That's good to be here. I like these interviews. I think the last one I had was with Julia Cannon on the Metaphysical radio show. That was fun.
It's always fun with Julia.
Yeah. And she was obviously always ever present in all of the trainings with Dolores. So that was good. So I had her training and Dolores, which was obviously really valuable. So I can share some of my experience of how I came to quantum healing, a recent session experience, because as much as my social media presence isn't very strong, it's because I'm busy in my practice all the time. I believe that when you're doing what you're meant to do, there's a flow there, there's an ease there, and people know where I am, and then the referrals go around, and then people come for their sessions. And I'll talk later on in our interview about a recent client session, because I've probably facilitated about 1,500 QHHT sessions. I qualified in 2010. And what happens with the brain is all of the stories sort of merge together, and I'm just left with an awareness of this huge quantum intelligence that's all around us. And I don't really put the stories separately to any particular individual. What happens is I'm just left with more awareness and my own personal growth. So I feel blessed that I do the work that I do, because if life is meant to be about learning, developing, growth, I'm not only having my own life lessons, but I have the privilege to sit and listen to, as you do as well, John, people talking about their current lives initially, and then we hear about past lives, parallel lives, sometimes future existences, or just pure information that seems to be coming through. So it keeps it ever interesting, ever evolving. And as Dolores said, every time she thinks she's grasped what's going on in the world or the universe and life itself, her mind's bent like a pretzel and something else comes through. So it's like being a private investigator, I think, at times.
It is sometimes, yeah. And I always say this is the best job in the world, because, well, for me personally, it's just such a privilege just to get to know people and just to get to help people. Just amazing.
Yeah. I wish we weren't going through the restrictions at the moment, because when you miss opportunities and you think, damn, I should have done that. The amount of invitations I've had to visit some of my clients all over the world that I could have taken and haven't. I'm regretting that now, because I don't want to I'm not traveling at the moment. But I just received another invitation last week. So I thought to myself, I'm going to start taking these invitations up, because these are too good to miss. People seem to really enjoy their sessions and always want to give back as well. I think naturally the people that tend to be drawn to QHHT are very emphatic, caring people, and very open people that just want to continue learning and ensure that they're giving to the best of their ability. So I always know the caring ones, because they try and fold up the blankets afterwards, and I say, you can just leave that there. I can deal with that. You've just had quite a journey. You don't need to be tidying up for me afterwards. So if I could just give you probably what might be interesting, hopefully for some, is just how I found QHHT initially.
Please.
Yeah. So I've always been quite open to my own innate intelligence, and we could call it many different things. I now understand: divine mind, God, oneness, innate intelligence. And Mine really opened up probably when I was about 10, when I lost my cousin to cancer. And I had started to have many different sort of metaphysical experiences. And as I grew older, I realized that when I was stiller, quieter, I had more knowing coming through, more certainty. And I've relied on that throughout my whole life. So I learned that through adversity would be the biggest life lessons as well, and particularly through different bereavements of people that I've held close. And my father passed away at the end of 99, and I'd been working in the family business. And I thought to myself, I went into sort of the need for thinking I need to be secure. You know, I'm coming out of the only business I've ever known. I always kind of knew it wasn't what I was meant to be doing all my life. And I was about 30 at the time. And I was already very, very open. But I did something just to gain security that I felt like was soul destroying. Even though I could do it, I kind of sensed it wasn't what I was meant to be doing. And then I had a very prominent feeling that I'm a healer communicator. There was like quite bizarre words that came through. And with me, I have like bizarre experiences or bizarre words that just sort of jolt me. And I think, where on earth did that come from? And that's when I know that I'm onto something. It's not just something I've listened to on the TV or something, because it'd be so strange that it just come out of the blue. And for me, it's like piecing a jigsaw puzzle together, you know, the next step of my journey and the next place to go to. And I've just always had faith that, you know, that the next piece will appear when it's meant. And then the next piece of information I received was hypnotherapy specifically. So I first qualified with hypnotherapy in 2004. And fortunately, I learned past life regression very early days then. And all we were doing was practicing with students right off the mark, right at the beginning. And straight away, there was amazing experiences happening just while I was practicing. Like I worked with a student that she was doing energy healing. She wasn't doing hypnotherapy. And in her past life regression, what came up that started to whet my appetite for this past life regression part of what we do, she started speaking French at a certain part, and she was a herbalist in this past life. And I thought, oh my God, where's all this language coming from? And she said that, you know, in French, she was saying, they're coming to get me, they're coming to get me. And so she had gone back to that time where people were burnt at the stake. And
Wow.
It was such an experience. There was so much to that story that I thought, wow. And I started to get clients as soon as I qualified in hypnotherapy back in 2004. And then I was called to an agoraphobic, and he lived around the corner from where I lived. And I thought, oh, it's pretty close. I'll go there. He can't come to me. He can't leave the house. I'll give this a go. I'll see what can happen here. And I think life is a lot like that. It's like, I don't know, but let's find out, and giving things a go that really sort of produce the goods. And in that session, so this is well before I even knew Dolores existed, all of a sudden he started speaking with, it was a different voice. He was an Asian man, but it was a very different voice. And it turned out that he had a walk-in, and he was a spirit, so the original spirit that was intended for the body had decided that he just didn't want to continue. And so he left. The walk-in came in. And I even had the insight to know then, even though it wasn't part of my training back then, you know, was this the divine plan, you know, to carry on in this way? And again, it made me really interested in the work that we're doing. But I just carried on getting the clients that I got. I remember one of my early clients was a policewoman that had a phobia of traveling. It basically boiled down to claustrophobia. And I realized that in regression, even in the current life, it's like shining the light of awareness and releasing the emotional charge that might still be affecting the person to this day. So I really became absolutely intrigued with regression, because she didn't tell her other police officers. She couldn't go on a helicopter trip that they were going on. She didn't like being in the back of a 3-seater car on the motorway. Anywhere where she felt out of control, didn't like to be on the underground, didn't like to be in lifts or even escalators going down. So within 3 or 4 of regular hypnotic sessions, that was nailed, no longer an issue. Got a very excited message from her. And then I went back to support the training of hypnotherapy with my original hypnotherapy teacher. She was a spiritual healer in actual fact as well. And the day that I went back, what do you know, was the weekend of past life regression training. And so one of the students worked on me, I worked on them. He found himself all of a sudden on a boat going, bleh, bleh. It was nearly being sick. And I had to learn to quickly moving past that part before he was in a past life and get seasickness. And that was interesting. And then he practiced on me and he said the words incorrectly, and the subconscious could be so precise. He said, go back to the last life, which wasn't actually the instruction, but that's exactly what my subconscious did. I was just a regular old woman with family sitting around me. And I was just passing on. Another student worked on me, and I went back to a life as a Spanish, sort of like, it reminded me of like a flamenco dancer or something. And I had a male partner, and we were on cruise ships, and we was going from country to country. I mean, there was so much detail, and we were killed. And I didn't go in a very nice way, but my subconscious sort of scooted past that. But I just had an impression. But something came up that I wasn't spiritually aware of at that point in my life. I think I was 34 at the time. And I found myself as an orb bobbing above the sea. And I was like this royal blue orb. And I was really confused because I thought, what just happened to me? Where am I? And where am I meant to go? So that was that experience. Another piece to the jigsaw puzzle of life isn't exactly what that most perceive it to be, you know, the grounded way of looking at things. So again, my appetite was growing into just the multidimensional. The next thing that happened was there was this TV hypnotherapist, and she was specializing in past life regressionists, and she was on some sort of UK morning show that I decided to go to just to see her approach. Again, the private investigator in me, and I stepped out of a spaceship with a furry clawfoot. And she wasn't used to that kind of thing and pulled me back out. And I thought, wow, I was just in the universe. And she said to me, your hypnosis isn't very good. And I thought, I just had the whole universe around me. Yeah. And I was just about to go somewhere. I mean, Dolores would have run with this. So again, I was left with this intrigue. And then one day my mother said to me, and this would have been probably 2010 in actual fact, she said to me, my gardener mentioned a lady, she said, Dolores Cannon, she said, and my mum was very insightful as well. She said, I think you're meant to look into Dolores Cannon. She said, I don't know any detail about, she said, but take a look. And as soon as I went online, found some information on Dolores, just as it always happens with me, it's very synchronistic. She was coming over to the UK within 5 months, and going to, I can't remember where it was now, Bristol, I think, or Bath, I can't remember exactly. But anyway, it wasn't a million miles away from where I was within 5 months. And I just knew there was no hesitancy whatsoever. I was doing the job still that I found soul destroying, and then every day off and every opportunity and every weekend I was working doing my regular hypnotherapy practice, now and again doing past life regressions and finding it interesting. Anyway, the 5 months came, and as soon as I was sitting in Dolores' class, I was at the front row and I couldn't even speak to anybody else. It was just like I was glued, and I was taken in. There wasn't a word that I missed, and it was just like, I said to somebody in the break, I said, I've changed already. And I couldn't quite describe it in words other than there's been a shift in me. I've changed. And I've always been quite, I say always, back from 2006, I think it was, I started to see energy around everything, people, inanimate objects. And I seem to have the experience first and then research it afterwards. I quite like it that way because it tells me that I've not been influenced and that I'm just getting my experiences confirmed. And around Dolores, I could see this beautiful energy. And then instead of just having like a guide around her, I saw a full entourage of just the silhouette of lots and lots of heads and shoulders. And I thought, this woman she doesn't come with one or two. She comes with an entourage. And it was just the most amazing experience. I did level 1 with her training. As soon as there was the opportunity to do level 2, you was meant to have done. I think everything's changed now, but at the time, I can't remember if it was meant to have facilitated 50 or 100 cases before we even entered level 2. That I did. And then we practiced on one another again in Glastonbury in a little house there. And we went off into different bedrooms and practiced with one another and filmed it. And it was amazing. And there was a lady there that I don't know how she was there, because she hadn't really done any training on anybody, any facilitating of the session on anybody else. And everybody was a bit hesitant to practice with her because they thought that she wouldn't have any experience or whatever they thought. And I had already done my sharing with somebody else. I'd been the facilitator and I'd been the client, and it was interesting. And I said, you can work with me. I said, practice on me. And so she did. Do you know what? To this day, that was the most amazing experience to me, of my own experience, just because I'd already got the structure in my mind of what was happening. So even though she was saying certain words, I was overriding that, and I was doing what I needed to do and go where I needed to go. And it was amazing. But that was almost like on rewind. So what I've noticed with my own quantum healing hypnosis sessions, and even though you only need to ever do one of these, occasionally people decide to do another, is every single session is completely different than the last. And I've got experience of that, because that one was like rewind. I came, instead of it just being visual, which is what it had been before, this time I came in on the back of a camel, and it was more of the feeling of the movement of the camel. And I realized that I was a really sort of wiry Middle Eastern man, but I was a slave, like this camel jockey. And I was very good. I kept winning races and we would obviously be in the desert until I got quite old. The camel, I used to sleep on straw with the camel. The camel died before I did. And then I started losing. So I started getting whipped in the back. And at the time, for years, my back had been really painful in this life. And just by accident, what I'd explored in that session, afterwards, my backache had gone. It wasn't lower back anymore, but that's how I was killed, was being whipped on the back. But I went to the space between lives. I saw one of my masters and told me I was part of the Melchizedek. I can't even say the word Melchizedek. I'm part of the order of the Melchizedeks or something like that. Melchizedek. Oh, that's a word. Yeah. And I found that amazing, because I hadn't even thought of that before. But it was really emotional. My eyes just had tears flooding from them. And it telepathically, it was being communicated to me that I'd done really well. I was on the path I was meant to be, and I'm helping. And I'd done very, very well. And then with that, rewind again. And I was an orb outside of a sarcophagus in a tomb. And I just couldn't understand how I'd been killed, because I was so powerful. I just kept thinking I was so powerful. How was I killed? So to go from a slave life to this powerful, and then I was on rewind, I explored that life, being this powerful being. What I've learned in these sessions and listening to other people is sometimes the subconscious will give people really polar opposite experiences in the same session. Or it could be one life, but a polar opposite experience of the life they feel they've been given in this life. They believe their lot in life, the path they're on, is the only way, and they might not be best pleased with it. And then the subconscious gives them another way. And when they give them this other insight, it's almost as if they've put a much larger camera lens on the way they perceive their world and their place in it. And when that happens, when the scope actually widens, it releases this very blinkered view they might have had on their life. And there's so much value in that. But equally, sometimes you've probably found yourself, John, where the subconscious will give an experience of a life that's almost metaphorical to the life they're living, very samey. And if they're bored in this life, they might be given, and they admit themselves, that was so boring, a very sort of digging potatoes type existence. But
just
it's
a
almost
mundane life.
Yeah. And so that can sometimes be the very thing that, when we get sick of being sick or fed up with our own self, that it almost gives us this kick up the backside to do something different. And again, that opens up that awareness. I've got so much more opportunity here than I've given myself credit for. And they go out into the world, and just the session becomes the difference that makes the difference for them.
It's a subtle kick up the bum.
A subtle kick up the bum, that's what we could call this. Yeah, this talk. Absolutely. And I was called back actually to support one of Dolores's, well, I think it was the last hypnotherapy training that she did in the UK. And it was a large class in Glastonbury again, 60 people there. And there were some female monks there as well. There's people from all over the world, and it was amazing. And she or Julia said to me, right, we're going to have you as a guinea pig. We're going to have 2 students work on you. You're going to sit at the front on that chair there, and it's like this rock hard plastic chair. And she said, there won't be any induction though. You're just going to have one life with a body and one life without a body. And I just had a big smile on my face, looking and thinking, you've got to be joking. I said, really? I said, no induction. And she said, no, you'll be fine. And I thought to myself, I'm never good at making up information at school. I wasn't very good at making up stories or anything. I say things as far as I'm aware as they are. I thought I'm going to have to probably make something up just to be of use. I was aware I was there to be of use to the people, give them a learning experience. If I could draw on the experiences of the sessions, maybe I could recreate that and share it with the group. So in the first session, the first student working on me, she gave me, I was given a life on another planet, a male life. And what I love about Dolores is she's so sort of just straight as well and comes across so grounded, because afterwards I'd had this bunch of keys around my waist and I had a family with me, and I knew I was protecting some sacred information somewhere. I can't remember whether it is in a pyramid or not. And afterwards Dolores said, she said, was there anywhere you wanted to go? She said that you wasn't asked to explore. And I said, yes. I said, I wanted to find out what these keys were to, but obviously being a student, the student had sort of led me somewhere else. Yeah, missed the opportunity. Whereas when we ask the question, where do you feel most drawn to exploring? That can open up all sorts, because sometimes the client finds it very hard to articulate what they're experiencing, but if they can follow the urge, or I can go anywhere, then we start to hear more and more information coming through. So that was good. And then in the break there, one of the other students put a little stone in my hand, and it was really strange, because I wouldn't say I'm into crystals. I've had particular times in my life where I've had insight of one that I might particularly might be good for me, and I followed that, and it has been, but I wouldn't say I was into crystals as some people are. But anyway, this lady put this stone in my hand. It looked more like a stone than a crystal, just brown and beige in color, sort of stripy, like a cylinder. And as she did it, something energetically went poof in my crown, and I thought, wow, that was a funny experience. But I felt like I was in a rush because I needed to use the loo. I wanted a cup of tea, and I knew I had to come back to do this other guinea pig session. So that's what I did. Came back, sat down, another student worked on me. And this time was really amazing, because it was like being, I said, I feel really jovial. I feel male. And then I realized that I was a planet, and I had this larger planet by the side of me. And then I was aware that I had lunar energies shining on me. It felt quite nice, almost like a tickle on the back. It was just like this resonance, and it was beautiful. And it was a totally different way of experiencing QHHT for me, being this planet, and realizing that the planet is so alive and jovial, and the bigger planet felt more like a motherly presence. And apparently that stone was exactly what I was experiencing. So to this day, I still don't know whether that was a real, true past life regression, or whether I channeled the piece. They said it was part of Jupiter, and that's what I felt that I was part of Jupiter. That was definitely a very real experience to me. I don't know whether I channeled that because that crystal went in my hand, or whether that was a real past life. But I find that in these sessions, the real value is in not so much what happened, but more, what did I take away from that? What was the message there?
Yeah.
So occasionally an experience can come through that's not typically past life. It can be very metaphorical. In fact, just recently I had a student work on me, and I wouldn't say it was a past life, but it was very metaphorical as to why I'm here now and what I'm here to do as a transmuter of energies and frequencies through voice communication, whether that be in my transformative life coaching, QHHT, hypnotherapy. Doesn't matter what door, there's many doors to change, and it's whatever the person feels they resonate towards is the best door to go through, I find. And the best way to really get the value from any of these sessions is not so much the content, although there is value there, but more importantly is, what did I take away from that? What was the message? Because sometimes people might say, I don't know if that was real, but it's more, okay, if it wasn't, it doesn't really matter. What did you take away from it? Yeah, what did you take away from it? And there's always a message, there's always learning, and it's always, because we hear the current life story first of all, you always can understand just how valuable that information can be and what a shift that actually can influence.
Totally. I've had lots of QHHT sessions myself and stuff like that. And me personally, I don't care if it's real or if it isn't real. It's what I get out of it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
That's what matters.
Yeah. So I've been taking some more trainings just lately, and I've just recently qualified for the 3rd time in 20 years. Oh no, you said to me 2004 to now, I was more like 17. Anyway, maths isn't so great. We've established that. But anyway, the 3rd time since 2004, I've just qualified in hypnotherapy and NLP and transformative life coaching. I sort of touched on this before we started the interview, and I'm finding that really, really interesting, more so the life coaching, because we explore the power between thoughts. And that's where the innate wisdom is. And I've really enjoyed that. And I found that whatever I'm focused on, the next QHHT client that comes through the door highlights exactly what I've been sort of focused on. And it's amazing, this interaction. We think that we're separate, but there's this interaction that the consciousness with innate wisdom, the universe, whatever you want to call it, brings through my door. And I sort of smile to myself sometimes when I hear the subconscious, because I just think, I know why you gave me that. It's because I've been going down that avenue or that rabbit hole of thought. And so the recent session that I had, just I know that people like to share their QHHT client sessions on this show as well, don't they? So should I talk a little bit about a recent session, because it's sort of, it resonated some of the things I'd been thinking about. But this gentleman, he came along last week, and he was recommended, once again, a recommendation from actually his wife. She came to see me a couple of weeks ago. And even though, as we said at the beginning, I've not got a strong social media profile, she sent me a video testimonial, which I've started. I've got free video ones on the YouTube channel that I've got. Lots of more written testimonials than I can count on my website. But she absolutely loved her session, and she got a major health benefit from that as well. And then he came along last week. He's 70, and it's good for people to have a purpose to their session. They usually have. He said he wanted to refocus on life. He said that his wife had received a lot of health benefits in her session. And he said he felt that he was of an age that he felt he'd been in a rut the last few years, just going through the gears, just doing what he'd always done or been doing, just doing what he felt that he needed to do to get by.
Yeah, just surviving.
Yeah. Within his session, he initially felt he was experiencing the conception of his life initially. He received an apology from his father that's quite profound. And then sometimes what happens in QHHT is all of a sudden there's a certain point where the experience seems to shift a gear. And all of a sudden he was aware of being inside the middle sun, aware of planets communicating around him and having like this control panel. It's amazing because in my session just recently, which was very metaphorical, I was aware of this control panel as well. But in his, he was aware of this control panel inside this middle sun that was assisting with harmonies, equilibrium, and balance. And at the time, that's it, yeah. And that's what I was dealing with as well. So it's really nice to hear it from another angle, through somebody else as well. And he just kept saying, oh, this is fun. This is such fun. And he was smiling as he was sitting there. And he said, it was so nice to have this fun and just to sort of explore all of that. And I felt that there was a lot more going on than he was actually articulating.
Yeah.
He said it felt like a game of how deep consciousness can go and be able to come back out. And so he was having some fun with that, because as we know in QHHT, it's very much about being open to just sort of let yourself go and explore and find out. Whereas if somebody comes because someone else has taught them to come for the session because they need to come, and they're a little bit fearful or closed, they don't let themselves go quite as well as somebody else. So it's almost as if he was allowing himself to shift backwards and forwards, and just how deep he could go into his consciousness. And he was really having some fun with that. And he experienced the feelings of success and celebration. And it was as if his wife, I think, was there as well. And he explored interdimensional intersections, he was saying. And then he had a tremendous experience. And this is what I've noticed in a lot of the sessions. It can sort of start off as a series of stories, and then all of a sudden it becomes very energetic. And all of a sudden there was this tremendous experience of heart energy work that was triggered. He experienced his heart beating with the galactic heartbeat, and light flooded through into his heart. And after some time, he explained he'd been refueled. It took some minutes. And then we just sort of, as a facilitator, sit back and allow this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it's been refueled. He said, I've been given a new heart. And it was really amazing. In the session, it was confirmed he's a galactic healer. His mission was part of the first wave responders that Dolores Cannon has described. He has higher energy work to support now, with a pipeline of energy coming through to him. And he was here to clear out old energies and assist in bringing in the energies of the ascension of humanity, which is happening now. He is a galactic ambassador, was confirmed. I love these names that the subconscious gives, and to have faith and hope and purpose. And we know that hope is super powerful. When we've got hope, all sorts of doors are open for us.
It's just strength.
Absolutely. And he was told he's more than capable. He's been playing small. He tried to hide, but his heart is refueled now, and his emotional body has come alive, lifting this life, stepping into mastery. And one of his questions was that he wanted clarity around having a meditation a little over a decade ago. It sort of stuck with him, this particular meditation, where he received the words, "There are no more mountains to climb." However, from that meditation a decade ago, he'd experienced a lot of challenges. And he said none of which he'd call mastery. So it's obvious he wanted this mastery. He wanted to know where he was on that journey. So the subconscious gave him an explanation, which included confirmation that he is moving from doing to being on that stage of his life now. It's a case of I am being. And I don't know whether any of the listeners here are aware of the difference between the experience of doing and being. It's quite
a huge jump.
Yeah.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah. And in part of my other trainings that I've just taken, I was asked to come up with a metaphor. And because the language of the subconscious quite often is metaphor and analogies. Often we speak and we're sort of speaking analogies or metaphors, and they're so powerful. And I don't know whether most people understand the power of metaphor and what they're saying. We're our own hypnotists, because whatever we keep repeating is really being programmed in, especially these metaphors and analogies. And also symbols and imagery and emotions are the language of the subconscious. And the subconscious is always trying to give us messages. So when I I wanted to talk about a metaphor from the heart in this assessment that I was undertaking, to come up with my own metaphor. And it reminded me of the NLP training that I'd taken, where I was asked to remember a time where I felt unfettered. And I thought, wow, that's a bizarre word. And what had come to mind was like a horse running free, unbridled and free. And quickly my subconscious had given me the experience, after working really hard for months in the lead up to Christmas. When my father was alive, we had retail outlets. I went to the Caribbean. And on the first day, I run like a lunatic doing cartwheels into the sea. And then I just laid floating on the sea on my back. And within seconds, I had no thoughts. And within seconds, I merged with the sea. I had the experience of merging with oneness, and I could hear everything in the sea. I was the sea and all life in it. And I had this massive heart opening, and it was just amazing. So within just the power of questions is so powerful, because we could explore a QHHT session, and I have, with other people, where they've explored being a raindrop, they've explored dropping into the ocean, they've explored the expansiveness of being the ocean, and then they've explored being the condensation, going back up into the rain and falling onto the mountain and becoming part of the rock of the mountain, and the shifts of consciousness and experience. And I had that just in that experience being on holiday. So in a QHHT session, it's an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, to just have another perspective, another experience that changes everything. So I called this client this morning just to make sure I had permission to share his story. He said, oh yes, he said, I'm rushing out of the door now. I said, I'm more interested though, I said, in what you sense that you got from the session, from that experience. I said, because it sounded very interesting to me. I said it was amazing, and to actually be witness and experience the shifts in energy in the room as you were exploring that. And he said that, I'm just finding what I've jotted down from his notes this morning. He said his experience was a major turning point for his life now. He said his experience was one where he was space and the universe was forming through him. It's worth thinking about that for a moment. Mm-hmm. He experienced he was space and the universe was forming through him. It reminded me of my ocean experience, my oneness experience. He meditated the day after his QHHT session and observed his life from a different perspective and received the words, "Your time has come." And then he received a call from a friend that he had not spoken to in a decade, that offered him an opportunity that he liked and could also earn some money from, which was a benefit right now for him. He told me he now has hope and is realizing opportunities, and feels the session has made life now a lot more exciting. He told me his QHHT session opened what is within. That's one session. Some people go to counseling for years and don't get that.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. I think talking about your life and what's happened is very refreshing to do it once, twice. But in a QHHT session, you have the opportunity to talk about that initially. And when you hear yourself speak and put things into place and put things into perspective, that in itself is one layer of healing. And then you move on to your QHHT experience. And again, that opens up that perspective. It sort of releases the shackles of perception that might have been quite blinkered at the time. And then you experience the energy that can happen as well. And it's something.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you saying that about the energy and shift of perception and stuff like that, it just brought back a couple of memories where I've had clients in here and they wouldn't have spoken to their family member for 15 years. It might have been a daughter or something like that. Yeah. And they're really hurt by it. You know, it's like they're just devastated with it. It's just really affected them in this whole life. And there was two that specifically came to mind. So we talked about it with the subconscious, got through it, got the perspective, everything. And then on both occasions, as soon as we'd finished, within 3 minutes, their phone had rung, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. It was the exact person." And I said, "Go and answer it, go and answer it." And they said, "Hello." And then they said, "I'm so sorry." And they were just like it's bringing me to tears. Like, they were just so happy. And so, oh my God, it just reconnected that connection again. It's amazing how the universe works.
Yeah, it is.
Just like that for that bloke. He just needed to go through what he needed to go through, and then the doors just opened for him.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's really good. And to think he's 70 as well. So, you know, perspective is everything. If you think that's it, your lot in life, and, you know, there's so much more at any given second.
There's so much more. One of my all-time heroes in life is Louise Hay.
Yes.
I don't think she started her first art class till she was 78, something like that.
Yeah.
She loved it. Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. The variety is the spice of life, as they say.
Totally. Doesn't matter how old you are, if you've ever wanted to do something, if you've ever had an interest in doing something, just go and do it. Who cares? Doesn't matter how old you are. Go and do it.
Yeah. I think if everyone on the planet did that, then we really will have a quickening in this shift that we're already experiencing right now. Probably part of that shift is about just broadening that scope, that awareness to what's possible. And even, you know, who does know the big picture? Who knows whether this is real or not? If you just follow what feels good, I don't know, let's try on for size. Let's just find out and have that inquisition, have just that interest to give it a go. I think life will become interesting. It'll be more free-flowing. You'll connect with that innate wisdom that is ever present. Your innate wisdom, your innate well-being is always available to us, but we cloud it with our thinking quite often. And so many people identify themselves with their thoughts. But as we may have heard before, you know, we are more than our thinking. We're more than the clothes on our back. We're more than our bank account, the house we live in, or a car. We're so much more than that. But we're literally living in the feeling of our thinking. But just like the mind analogy for this is a still lake, let's say. And sometimes in life, a curveball happens or the unexpected happens. It's like a rock's been thrown in and all the sediment comes up and we can't see clearly. If you just allow that rock to settle, the water will settle and become clear again. So instead of hanging on to what's just happened and the experience that might have happened yesterday, last week, last year, a decade ago, 20 years ago, if you let go of it, come out of the thoughts, you have clarity again. You connect with what is, the innate wisdom, the innate well-being. But what the problem is quite often is we carry on throwing in more rocks, more thoughts. So the rocks are the analogy for extra thoughts, and thoughts are just thoughts. They're a lot like the film that we're playing in our mind. And consciousness is the cinema screen, let's say. And innate wisdom is all around and ever present, always has been, always will be. And it's what makes up our DNA. It's what makes up every atom of every object in the world. It is so intelligent, and we have access to that when we just clear our thinking. So some people say they can't meditate. Well, that's fine. But just realize what you're doing. When you're doing lots of thoughts, it's a doing, not a being. If you're doing lots of thoughts, you're not allowing the space between thoughts to actually connect with your innate wisdom, your innate well-being. Yeah. And you can influence more of that. The more you become aware and take like an objective step back. Oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm just doing thinking. But thinking, thoughts are always going to come. That's the nature of us. But just to be aware that they might not be reality. They are just thoughts. That can give us some breathing space.
It's just a story. There's on average, people think 70,000 thoughts a day.
Yes, and you've got the stats, John.
I do. I'm a stats man. I love it. But most of those thoughts are the same thoughts as you had yesterday and the same thoughts that you had before. But those thoughts just become habit.
Exactly.
And that's why Joe Dispenza, he says, break the habit of being you, because the thoughts that you're thinking are just a habit.
Yes.
I'll always say, be aware of the thoughts. The first thing is just be aware of the thoughts, put a voice to those thoughts, because most of the thoughts that you're thinking, they're not even yours.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a critical thought, if you actually consciously put a voice to that thought, you'll probably find that it's somebody else's voice. It doesn't belong in there. Get rid of the energy.
Yeah. That leads me to this question that I think is quite powerful. Where do thoughts come from?
Are you asking me or?
Well, I just love that question. Where do thoughts? It's one of those questions that all of a sudden makes you pause. Think, is it the grey? Some people might think, is it the grey matter? My brain? No, that's grey matter. It's just the brain is a lot like the analogy of a computer. Well, the computer, before it's got the programs, before it's got the electricity, it's just a plastic case, let's say, for simplicity. And then you think, well, okay, is the thoughts coming from the programs then? Well, without the electricity, the programs can't even run. So the programs are actually the consciousness. So, okay, where does the consciousness come from and the thoughts come from? Oh, it's the electricity analogy. Well, what's the electricity analogy? It's the quantum field. It's the innate wisdom. It's the oneness, whatever we call it, God, universal wisdom, whatever you want to call it, doesn't care. As we know, yes, he doesn't care what we call it. It's just there. And the value is stilling those thoughts, the space between them, where you can connect with that innate wisdom, where life just flows. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I'm certainly recognizing more and more the value of that space between the thoughts. I remember listening to a meditation, and it wasn't so much the meditation from, I think his name's David G, that I enjoyed. It was just the end bit, the end sentence that he sort of left us with was, see you in the gap. Oh, actually, it might have been the beginning of the meditation, see you in the gap. And I thought, that's so
see
powerful.
You in the void.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Just going back to what you said with meditation, because people think that meditation is where you have to clear the mind and you can't think of anything, but that's absolutely impossible.
Exactly.
When somebody tells me that, I'm like, well, what chance have you got? Monks try and do that their whole life. They spend every minute of their day and they still don't get to it. So what chance have you got of that? I say meditation is anything that drops your brainwaves, so it just quiets down the mind just a little bit.
Yeah.
But for my wife personally, for my wife, her meditation is when she's running. Because when she runs, she says all she can think about and focus on is her breath. She gets all her answers from running. A lot of people, it's when they're gardening. Some people, their meditation is just driving, that they're just driving and they're just in no man's land. Some people, it's just walking in nature. So it's anything, just anything where you can just relax a little bit, even if it's just having a bath. Awesome. That's your meditation. Just do that and just let the connectiveness come through by itself, naturally.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny because the website I've got, I can't remember how many years old it is now, but I've known for at least 2 or 3 years. In fact, probably the whole time I've been living in Bournemouth, which has been 5.5 years. I need to change that website now, but people seem to like it. They say, oh, I like your website and I was drawn to you or something like that. And I've got a slogan on it, which just says next to my profile picture, rewrite your life story. And I've got a feeling I had that website built possibly in 2009. Oh no, it must have come after my training, 2010, maybe just after the QHHT first level training with Dolores. Rewrite your life story. And I just thought, I've had this hesitancy in coming up with the new website and I couldn't understand why. And I've come up with different ideas and different little sentences that I might put there instead. And with what I've learned, what's coming up for me now is more like drop the story. Oh, that's why I didn't do the new website, because I didn't realize we just need to drop the story.
It's only a story.
Yeah.
It is only a story.
Yeah. And
it's just your perception of what you think that story was.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know what I'm going to put on there, but at the moment I'm looking for ideas. Anyone can write in to to me and give me ideas, but at the moment I quite like that, just that still space where we just become one with that innate wisdom. And as that client said, he's opened up what's within. So yeah,
it's amazing once you it's like what we were talking before. You're always connected to that universal wisdom. It's just that sometimes we cloud it over with thoughts and beliefs and habits and pressure and stress, stuff like that. But it's amazing after you have a QHHT session how strong that connection actually is.
Yeah.
Man, people just get so much just knowing, or they get what people call downloads. It's just amazing. It just really solidifies that connection so strongly.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's worked for me, and this is how I've gotten to where I am.
Yeah,
you know, it just and it was because of the session.
Yes.
It just really strengthened that my connection, and now I just follow my intuition, even if it doesn't make sense to me. I'll still follow it, because I know in the longer term it's going to work out. So an example of that is, if I ever felt like, I've never felt like doing art or drawing or anything like that, but if I got a feeling or knowing that I have to go and do an art class, I'll look up art classes and I'll find out which one is the one, because I'll just get a knowing, and I'll turn up there. I don't know what I'm going to do there.
It merges.
It merges because it might just be that the universe is set up for me to meet somebody there. So it's got nothing to do with the art class at all. But it might be an important person that I need to meet and either help or they're going to help me, or it's just going to open something up in me, or it's going to put me onto a different path or something like that. That's what I mean. But most people, if you're not into art and they get a feeling to do an art class, they'll be like, what am I going to do that for? That's stupid. What's that got to do with anything? And they'll just ignore it straight away, because they're trying to work it out. They're not allowing it. They're not being it.
Yes. And I think that what I've realized now, even though I've taken all these different trainings as well, I've got a certain integrity that I want to fulfill at all times, and everything needs to be as meaningful as possible. And obviously I'm here to facilitate an individual's concept of what they want to get out from the session. In my mind as well, it's when we have an experience of that being and that innate wisdom, whether it comes through transformative life coaching or QHHT, I feel that the objective is still kind of the same. That has a massive, profound shift on the sense of self, the identity, the values and the beliefs, the capabilities, the tools, the resources. It has a massive shift on people's behaviors, and then even environment, because when they're resonating with more flow, then they have that positive snowball effect in all environments and people that they come into contact with. So it's always an inside out job, in terms of we're living in the feeling of our thinking. It's not so much the external, it's the internal. When you realize more of who you really are, more of this innate wisdom that we're part of, it sorts out everything else. Whereas if somebody comes through the door because they want to treat a phobia, or they want to treat a, let's say, regular hypnotherapy practice or NLP practice, we can do that. Or they've got a habit or they want to deal with, we can do that. But let's say we're this lake again, and so-called issues, or the space between who we truly are and who we think we are, is the ice, let's say, the barrier to the true innate wisdom is metaphorical ice. What NLP and regular hypnosis does is treats the specific issue, let's say. So it's almost like taking a hammer and a chisel and dealing just with that one area.
Yeah.
Done.
It's getting one specific piece of ice.
Yeah. But what you can do is you can come back to me, I don't know, next year with another little piece you want a hammer and chisel to. But the difference in when you take the experience of a shift in the way you perceive yourself in the world, that broader scope I was talking about, putting a big lens onto yourself, and instead of playing small, being aware of the expansiveness, which is your nature, your true identity. Not that I know what our true identity is, but just getting more of an awareness of what that could be. And also this quantum field of wisdom that we're part of. We don't have to be troubleshooting little bits and pieces. It just has a profound effect on everything, where everything becomes more aligned, all the levels, the purpose, the identity, the values and beliefs, the capabilities, the behaviors and the environments. All of those take a quantum shift in any of these sessions. So transformative coaching is still working along those same lines, but it takes a few sessions, or you can have 2 days of immersive sessions where we do a few hours each day, or QHHT is one session. And people have to see what they resonate more with. They might get it from a run, like your wife. They might get it from gardening. But there's all these opportunities that are there. Life doesn't have to be what we think it is, or the way it's been. We don't need to continue down that route. We can give ourselves a much broader scope, a much broader perspective, and then more of the flow comes in, more ease, that innate well-being, that innate wisdom, clarity. Very easy, it's an invitation, it's there. So hopefully today I've highlighted the value of personal development, and you know, the opportunity and the invitation that's available to everyone to explore.
And it's good fun.
Yeah, it's good fun, that's for sure. Life's not meant to be so serious. I'm pretty sure it's not. It's like happiness. We could have a whole other session on what happiness means, and is it attached to something else, whereas we're born with joy. It's almost like these sessions, what they do is they're like a reset. We're living in a world of distractions. Social, that's probably why I don't do too much on social media, because it's distraction. Phone calls, texts, WhatsApp messages, people in and out of our lives. We're living in, you know, lots of information from the internet, books, manuals, work, social life, ourselves. So much. It's not any more of anything that we need. It's actually less. You don't need to learn anything else. Everything that we were born with is what we're meant to have. We might have lost sight of the confidence we had as a baby. We might have lost sight of the beauty of the unconditional love, the bliss, the grace, all the good stuff, the joy. We were born with that. We've just overcomplicated it with all of these stories, all of this thinking, the beliefs, all of that. And in this journey of QHHT, or even transformative coaching, and there's probably many others, I believe the solution needs to be simplified, and that's what we do in the methods that I know about. Is it's more like a reset. It's just a reset to your innate nature.
I always say, the more simple your life is, the happier you'll be.
Yes.
People have this habit that their life is just so complicated.
Yeah.
And it's why?
Yeah.
Why is your life so complicated? And why is your life so full of drama and stress? Why?
Absolutely. Yeah. They say ignorance is bliss. They say ignorance is bliss. But they also say that, oh God, what's the word? You know, oh, enlightenment is bliss. So, you know, it depends how you perceive it.
It's just a perception.
Yeah.
So just tell everybody your website.
So it's, even when the new one comes about, it'll still be the same name. It's my name, Natalie-Hall.com, because an actress has got NatalieHall.com, so we have to put a little hyphen, a little minus sign in between the Natalie and the Hall for me. www.natalie, Natalie-Hall, which is HALL.com. That's my website.
Beautiful. And if you're lucky enough to be in the area, so just tell people which area you are in England.
I live on the coast, on the southwest coast of Dorset. It's Bournemouth. I live in a little village called Westbourne in Bournemouth, and people tend to make a retreat out of it. It's 2 hours from London, whether you drive, whether you get the train from Waterloo, or whether you get the coach from, there's an express coach that goes from Victoria, London here. All of them about 2.5 hours, even if you drove. The space on the drive. So people tend to make a little retreat, because we've got the beach, we've got the New Forest here. There's lots of beautiful walks, sandbanks just around the corner. Lots of places to eat and drink, so it's a nice break. So people tend to stay overnight that come for the session, and then they really sort of make it an immersive experience and get the most out of it.
Beautiful. It's a little mini vacation.
A mini vacation.
Beautiful.
Thanks, John.
And pleasure. And if you're interested in having a career just like me and Natalie, it's the best career in the world. If you're thinking about taking the level 1 class, you can use the discount code BLESSED in capital letters, and you'll get a discount price. And if you're interested in me, I've got my website up there, and feel free to contact me. Even if you're thinking of having a QHHT session and you just want some advice about what to do, or if you get stuck on questions or anything, I'm more than happy to help out as much as I can. So. And thank you so much, Natalie. You're an absolute QHHT superstar. So
thank you.
I'm so glad I uncovered the cave that you're hiding in. You go, hello.
It's a busy cave.